This is not the Britain that I remember growing up in, and I'm sure it's not the Britain that you remember growing up in. Now, I don't expect it to be the same as it was back then, but the change has been drastic. Now, this is a Britain where it seems like survival is a privilege, right? A privilege just to survive, when speaking out makes you the target, where the British people are the problem. Maybe even we are the enemy and we're punished accordingly, whether it's through the money that we have to pay into the government through taxes, or it's the fact that these days freedom of speech seems to be utterly taken away. Now, it's nothing to do with the crumbling economy, of course not. It's nothing to do with corporations squeezing us dry as British citizens, and it's definitely nothing to do with that wonderful failing government of ours, right? So I want to talk you through four little points that I think are part and parcel of what has made our once great Britain fall onto their knees, right? This kind of dystopia. Number one is surveillance state. Every move you make is being watched or monitored, okay? Now, according to a study from 2022, the UK has one of the highest number of CCTV cameras per capita. That basically means that for every 11 British citizens in 2022, there is one camera, okay? Now, I imagine that is a lot higher today in 2025. Now, protest laws are obviously tightening. In the past year that you've seen, there's been a lot of unrest, right, on the streets, the British streets in the UK. And people are obviously angry at certain situations and they're out venting their frustrations. Now, I understand not everyone does that in the correct way, but protests are basically unwelcome. This makes it harder for people to speak out. This makes it harder for people to think that their voice matters. Now, the police have also been giving this kind of increasing power, this power that is against those that go against the status quo. Now, whether you're on the left or whether you're on the right, the police will treat you differently, and we've seen it with evidence. Now, I have a question for you after each point. My first question is this: is this really about security in our country, or is it about control? All right, point number two, the cost of living crisis. The price of being British is not cheap, right? We have to pay a price for being British. Let's just quickly cover these points because I'm sure you all know energy bills, rent, food prices, these are all skyrocketing. They're not stopping, but your wages are stagnant. So the money incoming is getting less, but the money outgoing is getting more. People working full-time jobs in the UK now cannot survive alone on full-time work. So they're having to get a second job, a third job, in some cases even a fourth job just to make ends meet. Now, when I say make ends meet, that is probably having both heating, electricity, or maybe even food as well, right? Some people actually have to choose between those things because they can't afford it. Also, people in full-time employment are still having to go to food banks. That's the situation there is right now in the UK. Housing crisis, as you all know, the prices are getting higher. It's almost impossible for the new generation, the young people, to get on the housing market to buy a property. Mortgage rates are getting higher, but also rents are getting unaffordable. And finally, the government will blame many external factors for these reasons, but offer no real solution. Now, my question after cost of living crisis is this: why does one of the richest countries in the world, that is our UK, feel so poor? Point number three, the death of public services. This is leaving our nation behind. Now, obviously, the NHS is a huge talking point. It's something as a British citizen that we have to be thankful and grateful for having, right? However, these days, and not just these days, in recent history, the waiting lists have been, increasing to record highs. The strikes due to low pay, overwork, people suffering in silence. You have doctors and nurses leaving the country. You have people that are looking for surgeries but can't get an appointment for 3, 4, 5 months. You have people that just want to see their local GP, just want to get a prescription but have to wait for days. And that's completely unacceptable, right? Now, education cuts. Let's talk about education, especially in England. There are overcrowded classrooms all over the place. England is completely and utterly full. There's also underfunded schools. There's the issue with teachers, burnout, okay, overwork, underpay. Again, they don't feel like they're being, rewarded for their hard work. Public transport. Let's talk about the infrastructure of the UK. The roads. The roads are an absolute disgrace, folks. An absolute disgrace. Transport is falling apart. Not only is it falling apart, the prices are getting higher and higher. To get a train ticket to anywhere now in the UK is costing a fortune, and you're cheaper getting a plane to Europe. So my question about the death of public services is this: are we supposed to just accept that nothing works properly in the UK? Okay, moving on to the final point I want to make: media propaganda. Now, you all know that media is designed to keep you distracted. I'm not talking about the channels or the media that is coming up underground. I'm talking about mainstream. I'm talking about BBC. If you don't know the history of the BBC and all of the things that they're trying to hide, maybe you should look into it. I'm not going to cover that on this video. But often the BBC will give you a different narrative to make you follow something that's not true, to try and make you like a sheep. For example, things like celebrity scandals are out there to distract you from the fact that our economy is burning to the ground. Divide and conquer tactics by the media. They're trying to turn people against each other. We have the left side, we have the right side. Against each other, they are now enemies. They have problems with each other, their beliefs, their opinions. But the real problem here, folks, is the real thing that you need to focus on as a left or a right, whatever you may be, is the government. That is the only ones that should be blamed at this moment, and that can make a change. Now, every crisis, according to our great government, is unavoidable. It is also someone else's fault, right? It's never their fault. I think that is the case. It's been for years and years now in the UK, and it will never change. Now, the question I have for you about propaganda and media is this: if you control the narrative, then do you control the people? So finally, is there any hope, Paul, for our once great nation? Well, you know what? Let me acknowledge something right now. The British people, I spoke previously about their resilience, but I want to give them some credit for waking up, okay? Because people are waking up. Protests are growing like we've seen recently. And also alternative media is now rising. When I say alternative media, I mean not mainstream. Although these days it feels like the mainstream and alternative is kind of changing. Alternative media could be YouTube, for example, right? My little channel here is just here to try and let you know, in my opinion, what's going on, and that it's not all roses, right? Like the BBC want to let you know it is. Now, people are leaving the UK. Now, those people could be educated, they could be wealthy, whatever their reasons are for leaving. At the end of the day, they're just looking for a better future, a brighter future, more opportunity. Nobody is running away from the UK. Running away would insinuate that we are scared. Nobody's scared. People just don't accept it. And that's the difference. To not accept something means you believe in something higher, believe in something better for yourself. So have some ambition, folks. Have some belief in yourself, and don't accept it. But what if you want to stay in the UK? Well, that's also okay. But to stay in the UK, you're going to have to make some changes. So what can you do? Well, my solution would be you speak out, you take action, you consider leaving in the near future to make a better life for yourselves if you really don't think change is going to happen by staying there. So final words, folk, in my opinion, is the UK is not broken by accident. It is completely and utterly broken by design. Okay, that's what I believe. Now, the only question I have for you as a British citizen, just like me, maybe this question goes towards those that are still in Britain right now. My question is this: what are you going to do about it? Thanks for watching, folks. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.